Morning, everybody. I'm introducing our first speaker today, Xan Fredricks. She works with the US Geological Survey, the USGS, as a national map liaison to Florida, Georgia, Puerto Rico, and the US Virgin Islands for the National Geospatial Program User Engagement Office. She collaborates with a variety of partners to aid discovery and coordination of geospatial data, as well as the delivery of actionable science-based information to resource managers, emergency responders, and the public. Xan is the chair of the USGS LIDAR user group and deputy chair of the Geospatial Information Response Team. She is a GISCI certified GIS professional with an MGIS from Penn State University and a BS in Marine Science Geology from Eckerd College. She also serves as co-chair of the American Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing, Bathymetry, I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, working group. Prior to her current role, Xan was the LIDAR coordinator for the USGS Coastal and Marine Hazards and Resource Program. So give it up for Xan. It's all you.
Okay, perfect. For those online, I'm going to turn on my video. Apologies to those in the room in person. You won't be able to see me, but I always feel like it's a little more engaging that way. So thank you so much. Good morning. My name's Xan Fredricks, and I'm excited to share with you
Hold on a second, Xan.
Certainly, no problem.
Audio issues. All right, can you try again, please?
Certainly. How's that sound?
Nope. That didn't work. Okay, try one more time.
Okay, how about now? Is that sounding better?
Nope. Hold on.
No problem.
Sorry, technical difficulties on our side.
I think it's great that you guys are offering the hybrid option for those of us that were unable to travel to you today. So I say you do what you need to do. We're very excited to be able to join you virtually.
Okay, there we go.
Does that sound better?
I'm going to turn our speaker off so we don't get any reverberation, and I will turn it over to you.
Okay, sounds great. And we got confirmation that it sounds good online as well, so we should be good to go. I'm excited to share with you today the topoBuilder application and the on-demand topo products that you can create from the USGS National Geospatial Program. So if you're wondering what topoBuilder is, it is an application to make your own topographic map. You get to create it on demand. You get to center it where you want within the United States and the territories. You can get your map file in multiple formats. We've got a geospatial PDF, and we also have a GeoTIFF. And one of the greatest things about this system is that you are getting the best available data from the national map. Now, that means the most recent. So if you're into historical topos, we've got TopoView letting you access that. But if you're like me and you want the latest up-to-date map, topoBuilder is what you'll want to use. If you're familiar with the standard US topo products, those have been typically updated on a 3-year production cycle for the contiguous United States and even longer for elsewhere. So depending on your area of interest or when you were trying to access the data, you could have been accessing older data. So with topoBuilder, you're getting the best available data at the time of your map request. So you might be wondering what something like this could support. Well, it supports responsible resource management from land cover, vegetation, soil, think geology to forest cover change, the management of watersheds. It supports sustainable energy development from potential locations to areas that are exempt from development. It can support natural hazard risk reduction from urban planning around soil types and geology to natural or environmental disasters or hurricanes. We're all way too familiar with those. Floods, fire, it supports emergency response. You can center it at your epicenter and have that map drawn around that. It also supports recreation and tourism, right? Think about hiking or fishing, maybe hunting, camping. You could identify historic sites and landmarks. It also supports public health and security, from transportation and water treatment to identifying facilities for gathering during an event, or perhaps tracking the spread of a contaminant. So the topoBuilder team is hard at work adding a new map scale. I did want to share the application link for you guys. For those online, I'll put it in the chat. You can scan the QR code. Now this morning, the mobile application was lagging on me. The desktop was running fine. So for today's demo, just in case, I'm going to share some screen grabs I took earlier in order to walk you through the application and how to use it. Okay, so this web application was custom developed by Esri. It submits requests to the Esri ArcGIS Products on Demand system for automated map generation. So after you navigate to topobuilder.nationalmap.gov, the first thing you'll do is select your map type. And all you need to do is make sure that you click on whichever map type you're interested in. Now, this screen grab was taken before they added the 100K offering that you'll find below the 7.5-minute topo map type that I've got circled here. It's really exciting. I'm excited about that 100K scale coming in. And then you'll just click the next button at the bottom of the screen to continue with your selection. Now, from the Maps tab, the next thing to do is to zoom to your area of interest. The application is going to guide you with a message to help you select your area of interest in the map, and then you can just zoom in and get to that area. So once you're zoomed in, you have two options for your map extent. Now, you can either use the custom select, which allows you to choose that center point anywhere on the map, and then it'll create that 7.5-minute grid around it. It'll be highlighted in blue, so you see what your extent looks like. You also could choose the grid, which would give you the typical 7.5-minute grid. And the reason for offering this is, again, remember, it's using the best available data from the national map. So you might be, for Florida, the last topos were updated in 2021, but if you want to access and have a topo map with that new peninsular LiDAR data or the Hurricane Michael supplemental data as the base map, this topoBuilder would allow you to do that by using the grid option. Now you can select edit layers, and this is where you can select which of the topo layers you would like included on your map. You can uncheck any layers you don't want included. Say you don't want to overwhelm someone, or you simply want a smaller file size. That's where this is really a neat feature of topoBuilder. Now, it's important to note that this setting gets applied to all of the map products in your cart. So you'll want to group together similar requests and submit them separately. So if you do edit these layers, your on-demand topo product will even come with a little delivery note saying user-defined content, so you know that the content has been modified. Now, like I said earlier, there are two different format options available for the on-demand topos, a geospatial PDF and a GeoTIFF. And what's great about the geospatial PDF is while it has limited mapping functions, right? You can measure, you can find an XY coordinate, you can measure distance. This format is really great for non-specialists. You can view it without specialized software, you can print it. It still gives you that extra capability, but it's nice if you're going to be sending the file to someone that's a little unfamiliar with GIS. But alternatively, the GeoTIFF includes georeferenced information, so you can use it in GIS as well as image editors. Now, the other customization currently available is contour smoothing. So if you are unsure which level to choose, there is a little info icon that you can click, and it will enable a contour smoothness guide pop-up, and it provides some detailed information about the contour smoothing options to help you select the appropriate choice based on your use case. And then you'll just use the slider to adjust your contour between low, medium, or high contour smoothing. Now, these contours are generated on the fly using the Esri Generate Topographic Contours tool. Again, there are multiple smoothing options available. I'll go into those in a little bit more detail. but all of the contours are being ultimately derived from the best available data in the publicly accessible 3Dep repository. So the process of putting contours into an on-demand topo map first starts with 3D elevation program data. It then moves into an internal index to identify the necessary data extents. That index allows quick querying and extraction of only the selected elevation data, which is in turn fed into the contour generation tool. Now, 3Dep data production and indexing happen outside of the topoBuilder application. These are standard 3Dep processes, but steps 3 and 4, that data extraction, that contour generation, those occur within the back end of the topoBuilder application. So original product resolution, we call it OPR. It's a term for 3Dep to denote LiDAR-derived DEMS that were published at the original highest resolution of collected LiDAR. So as you can imagine, OPRs can vary based on the quality level of the LiDAR, the specifications of the LiDAR collection project, also the LiDAR spatial reference. So OPR in terms of cell size is typically 1 meter, around 3 feet, but it's not always the case. So 3Dep publishes the OPR DEMS, but it also then standardizes all DEMS within 3Dep into 1 meter, into a 1/3 arc second. It's downsampled to about 10 meters or 1 arc second, right? Think about 30-meter resolutions through that downsampling in order to keep it consistent and make it more seamless. So the downsampled DEMS are overlaid and blended into data resolutions, which together form our seamless DEMS. So the blending process includes feathering at the edges to make sure that there's a smooth visual appearance from older to newer data. Now in Alaska, we published 2 arc second, about 60 meter, in addition to that 1 arc second DEM, because we're using IFSAR in Alaska at a 5 meter resolution instead of the typical 3Dep 1 meter for the LiDAR. So those 3Dep standardized DEMS, they're published as cloud optimized geotiffs, and they're pushed into a cloud exposed repository. Now this repository is then indexed again by that internal process, and we update this nightly as new DEMS are being published as part of 3Dep on the national map. So this index is a really efficient way of accessing the repository by both area of interest, but also resolution. So the DEMS can be referenced and retrieved super quickly. Think fractions of a second with the query of that index. Now, the third step is where topoBuilder gets involved. topoBuilder has access to the DEMS in order to dynamically create the contours in that 4th step I was talking about, contour generation. So the 1 to 24,000 scale maps use that 1/3 arc second, the 10 meter DEMS, partly because it's the most appropriate resolution for the scale, but also because it's the resolution for which we have nationwide coverage right now. 3Dep is over 94% complete. There are 3Dep data available or progress for 94% of the nation, so that's really exciting. But again, from a scale standpoint, that 10 meter resolution makes sense for a 1 to 24K topo. So when users request a map on the back end, topoBuilder uses each of the map extents to then query that 1/3 arc second DEM from that index that we showed in the previous step. And because that index is so efficient, the compression of the cloud optimized geotiffs, it makes it really easy to load and transfer. topoBuilder takes only about 30 seconds to query and return to mosaic those DEMS for a single 1 to 24,000 scale on-demand topo map. I think that's pretty impressive. So for the 1 to 24,000 scale maps, contour intervals are based on the range of elevation values within a single quad. As you can imagine, those would be different in Florida as they would in Colorado. So that's really an important way for the map to dynamically create those contours. And these values, they're not just absolute elevation values, just the spread of the values more than the maximum to the minimum in each quad. So contour intervals in the on-demand topo maps are similar to those in a US topo. It's got the same look and feel, but they're not always identical. The contour intervals are being determined automatically through a formula specific for on-demand topos, whereas US topo contour intervals are determined manually for each quad. Those cartographers, they go in and they take a look at each quad the landscape characteristics, also that 3-depth data resolution in order to assess the contour interval for a US topo map. So it's important to note that these contour intervals only apply to the custom AOI off-grid maps, because the on-grids are going to go ahead and use those contour maps from the US topo, since the cartographers already determined those. Now, finally, the contours are then created for the retrieved DEMs using a few of the Esri geoprocessing tools in their defense mapping toolbox. Now, the defense mapping contour, those tools give us a little more control over contour generation and generalization than the standard tools that are provided in the spatial analyst toolbox. They also ensure that the topology is maintained through the process, and that's really important. So first, the Create Contours tool is run to generate some ISO lines. Then that output is run through the Simplify Contours tool. So various levels of increasing simplification and smoothing are applied with higher smoothness levels. Now, all the contours, even those with the low smoothness, are still being simplified and smoothed just a little bit. Otherwise, you can imagine the contour lines are a little too detailed for good cartographic representation on a 1 to 24,000 scale map. So that low smoothing, it just means the contours will be generated with minimal smoothing. They'll be very detailed. They represent the landscape in high detail, right? Giving you easier identification of geographic formation. So low smoothing is best for geology or geomorphology, also natural hazards. Medium smoothing is that default option. If you don't adjust that slider, it's going to come in at a medium smoothing option. And those are similar to what you're going to see on US topo products. They represent the landscape in reduced detail compared to the low smoothing contours. And this reduced detail of topographic features allows for better readability. So medium smoothing is best for recreation or geocaching, orienteering, physical science research, land and emergency management. And finally, the high smoothing option means that the contours generated will be very smooth, right? But it shows less detail. So they represent a generalized view of the land, and smaller geographic features actually might be missing. So high smoothing is good for thematic maps, right? Think about the relationships between data, urban planning, transportation management, also cultural feature depiction. So once you've confirmed your customization options, you just need to add the map to your cart. So you just need to ensure that box is checked next to your map name. A few times I've been trying to go to the next step and wondering why I don't have a map in my cart, and it's because I missed this one. So make sure that box is checked, and then you'll click the Add button at the bottom. And a good thing to note is you're able to select multiple maps that you've created and add them all to the cart all at the same time. Now, there's also a counter next to the word cart that tracks the number of maps you have in your cart. So your selected maps and their customizations are listed in the cart, which helps you just be a little bit more aware. You can always adjust your selections in case you selected too many or you want to adjust some other sections. In order to do that, there is an Edit Maps option at the bottom if you did want to adjust some settings. So from that Edits interface, you can adjust the format. If you want to go back to a geospatial PDF from a GeoTIFF or vice versa, you can change your contour smoothing if you've decided that you want it high or low versus medium. You can even, found this one handy, you can use the trash icon to delete a map in case you're like, okay, nope, I moved on. I've created a better version of it. Just remember though, if you make any edits in this edits interface, be sure to click that save button at the bottom in order to save those edits. Now, if you decided that you don't want any changes to save any of those changes that you made, there's also a cancel button, and either button returns you back to the cart. I also want to draw your attention to the user guide link in the upper right. If you have any questions about using the application, they did a really good job creating this user guide, and it walks through pretty much everything I've been talking about. Now, when you've finished adding maps to your cart, be sure to click the checkout button at the bottom, and then it'll create this dialog box asking you for an email address. Simply provide an email address and click checkout. It's really that easy. So one, select your map type between that 7.5 minute quad versus the 100K map. Select your grid or user center extent, and then which customizations options you want. And then you'll check out. So you'll receive two emails. This is what happens next. You'll receive first a confirmation that your request was submitted, including individual information about each map requested, so you can kind of keep track of those. And then that's when the system will begin processing your map. Now, topoBuilder operates within a 5-day time frame, depending on the number of map requests in the queue. So sometimes it can be completed in mere minutes. I've gotten one, I think, as fast as 9 minutes, but then I had one that took 2 days. So it kind of varies depending on how many requests are in the queue at the time. Then you'll receive a second email once your map is ready for download. And that second email contains a direct download link. It can be used to download the file. And this is great because you don't have to worry about your email attachment limit being exceeded, anything like that. It's important to note these are high resolution files. So if you want to take them for printing, you can. It's also nice that you could then forward this email to your team with that download link. They have access and they can download that map as well. So it's a really easy way to share that map. Now, it's really important to note these downloadable maps are available for 60 days. So be sure within that 60-day window to go and download your map so you don't lose it and have to recreate your map request. And that's that download map button in that email. Now, at any point after placing an order, you can track the status in case you're wondering, did it get hung up? What's going on? There in the email, you'll get a confirmation number and you can go back to the application. You can click on the track tab and then you just enter your order number. You click track, and that's when the tracker will show you what stage of processing your order's in. And if it was delivered, in case it's sitting in your email and you just, it fell to the bottom, you'll be able to see which date and do a quick search for it. Now, multiple orders can be tracked at the same time. So just enter another number in the order confirmation box, and it will allow you to track that as well. Now, if you don't receive your map within 5 days, it's really useful to contact the help desk. There's an envelope icon in your confirmation email that will help you reach out to them directly. Again, the help desk, I just mentioned it. If you need help with the application, there's a lot of information on the National Map topoBuilder webpage. That's the first link listed on the slide. And there's also the user guide I mentioned earlier. It's linked via the topoBuilder application in that upper right corner. And if you visited both the webpage and the user guide and you still have some questions, that's really when it's great to reach out to the National Map help desk. They have people standing by, happy to answer your questions and also to receive any feedback. If there's a resource or a capability that the tool doesn't have and you really wish it were there, we're collecting that feedback constantly to see if there's something that we could integrate into the next version of the application. So after the demo of the actual topoBuilder application and how it creates the on-demand topos, you may be just wondering, so what's the difference? What makes on-demand topos from the topoBuilder application different from the US topos? This is just an example. This is a popular place called Horseshoe Bend within the Glen Canyon Recreation Area on the Colorado River. And these are the US topo maps. You can see that they're split up around the bend. Now, US topos, they're free and immediately downloadable, but there are no customization options, and they're created in that preset 7.5-minute quadrangle. So while they're created in a semi-automated workflow, most of the manual components are being tied to annotation and quality assurance and review checks. So what if you wanted to go hike at Horseshoe Bend, right? Wouldn't you rather see a single topographic map? I sure would. I'd rather it look like this. So that's what the topoBuilder application can do. It creates that on-demand topo. You're still, for this example, limited to that 7.5-minute quadrangle. Now you could try it at the 100K scale, but for hiking, that might be a little much. You can center your map over the specific area of interest because you're not limited to that predefined quadrangle of the US topos. So these maps are generated on demand using fully automated procedures. Now, while US topos and on-demand topos use similar standards and specifications, there are a few differences like staged versus on-demand, quadrangles versus the custom extent option. There are those differences in the contours, right? Manually, assessed versus on demand and on the fly. There are potential data differences. Some are accessing the older data sets, while the on-demand topo has access to the newest available data from the national map. And also differences in timeline. Again, that US topo is available immediately online for download, while the on-demand topo does take a little bit of production time. Now, when it comes to scales, you'll note the similarities. The US topo is available at a 1 to 24,000 scale for US, and 1 to 25,000 scale for Alaska, 1 to 20,000 scale for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And then the on-demand topo offers the same scales, with the 1 to 20,000 scale also being available for some additional US territories. So I'm excited by that addition. And while the US topos are only produced at these specific scales, the on-demand topo is being developed to offer multiple larger scales in the future, just like we're seeing with that 100,000 scale map that's being offered now. And if you compare the actual map products, they're similar. You'll see a little bit of difference from the logo, the identifier, the credit note is very similar. The labeling, now that's a little different because, again, remember, the cartographers with the US topo are going in and visually assessing it. So they may be able to move a label to not have it obscure a feature, where because the on-demand topos are being created automatically, that labeling might be a little less ideal, but you'll still be able to see what features are underneath it. The contour, the trail symbology, again, very similar look and feel. The on-demand topo products have that look, but they're just offering some customizable options and enhanced capabilities. So as I mentioned earlier, users can now select which national map layers you want to include on your map. The newest release includes updates to the user interface. It makes the application easier to navigate from a mobile device when it is up and running, when they're not adding that 100K map type. We also recently added that map tracker that I explained earlier, and that's a really great feature because for those ones that didn't come in, 10 or 20 minutes, I was wondering, did it get hung up? At what point in the procedure, in the process is it? So that's a nice capability to have and go check out where your map is in the process. Now, coming soon, I mentioned as a permanent option is the 1 to 100,000 scale version of the on-demand topo. That's very exciting. It lets you, map larger areas. Think if you did have a natural hazard or say a wildland fire, something like that, you could center it in your area and show that larger extent. A few additional, considerations are evaluating the possibility of user-added content, and you can imagine the trickiness on that one. They want a user to be able to truly select a custom area of interest and not be limited by the 7.5 minute extent or the 30 by 60 for the 1 to 100,000 scale. But when it comes to adding user content, we have to be careful what users can add. While we would hope to think that people will be add only appropriate data, sometimes it might be difficult if they're adding something that then gets logoed with a USGS identifier and it's something less than appropriate for the map. Also, the other scales we're thinking of, county-based, maybe watershed-based. That would be a great addition. It would also be great to have the capability for GIS data download from the map. That's being considered as a future capability, or a print capability instead of having to take the map and get it printed. Maybe having the USGS store be able to print those maps for people. I talked about the additional scales. Next one being considered is 1 to 250,000 and up. We're not going to consider any smaller scales. It just, for that dynamic mapping process, makes it a little too tricky. Finally, the team is also looking into the availability of different map types. So whether it's a geologic map or maybe watershed maps specific to hydrology. Again, those are all things that are being considered for future releases. And if you have some ideas, again, if you send an email to that National Map Help Desk email address and share those, we'll certainly take those into consideration. So just some essential facts to wrap up. topoBuilder is using the best available, most recent data from the national map to create those on-demand topo products. And these are the data, as I was saying earlier, they're updated on various schedules internally and by federal partners. So you're really getting a good fresh look at data sets when you use the topoBuilder application. Now, currently users can choose their file format, their area of interest, your level of contour smoothness, as well as what layers you want on your output map. And then for the future additional customizations, the scales, the different map types are being planned. And just a reminder that with the topoBuilder application, there is that turnaround window. So whether it's 10 minutes or, up to 5 days, if you need an immediate map, if you can't wait, remember that our US topo maps, those staged maps, continue to be produced. So those are still available as free and immediate downloads. So there's no waiting on those. So again, like I said, if you have feedback or if you need support or help using the application, or if you have any questions about the associated map products, that's where that National Map Help Desk _ at TNM _ help at usgs.gov email address is really helpful. And as always, please feel free to reach out to me as your National Map Liaison for Florida. If you'd like more information about topoBuilder or on-demand topos, if you'd like me to hop on a call with you or your team and to demo topoBuilder or any of the other products and resources from the National Map, I would be happy to do so. All of our data, they're all offered free of charge and without use restrictions. And the more people we can get to use them, the better we'll make those products. It's a really good positive feedback cycle that way. And I like to think of it as that trusted topographic information is just a click away, and I'd be happy to help you find where to click. So thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for letting me share about topoBuilder application and the on-demand topo products.